What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have an amazing individual. I've been a supporter of his for a long time now, and he's always shown me love. This individual is a tremendous health and fitness professional in the field. He is also a physical therapist. He's an inventor of amazing fitness tools. One being that I know a lot of you know, the TRX rip trainer. Please help me welcome Pete Holman. How's it going, brother?
Fantastic, guys. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. How you been?
Outstanding. I mean, it's been a wild year on multiple fronts. So there's a lot of times where I just get up and I do the gratitude prayer, where it's just like, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I got this before I leave the door. But crazy times. And that's why it's great to connect with human beings and keep some positivism going.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without this podcast, being able to come in the office with him and be able to talk to people like you. It keeps me grounded, keeps me sane, makes me look forward to a day when we can meet in person again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing with COVID-19, there's so many negatives, but I think the one thing that it's reestablished or reiterated the importance of human connection and relationships and building relationships. And that's one of the reasons people are going off their rocker right now, because, if you're missing that, or if you don't have a way to facilitate that, because you're isolated or whatever's going on in your business or personal life, it's a really challenging time. So, here we go.
Yeah. How have you been dealing with all that personally?
It's interesting. When COVID first struck in March, I live up in Aspen. It's a mountain town. It's a very tourist-driven industry. And I'm a physical therapist and strength coach. I do a lot of personal training and one-on-one stuff. And when March hit, they actually closed the ski mountains down. It's unprecedented. I've been up here for 25 years, and they've never closed all 4 ski mountains.
Wow.
When the ski mountains close in March, which is spring break time for everybody, nobody comes. And so literally the town was like a ghost town overnight, and all my clients left. And, I woke up, I cried a little bit, like, what am I going to do? I got no income. And then I realized, hey, this is a time to work on my personal development. This is a time to connect with my family. This is a time to get some great workouts in, which I've been striving for or missing. And this is a time to, decompress and from a busy winter season. And I've been learning to play the guitar, so I was working on my guitar riffs, getting some workouts in, hanging out with family, and working on professional development, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But I do a lot of other stuff in the industry as far as product development and design, and that stuff takes a lot of time on the back end. So to me, it was great, but I say that still empathizing with most people around the country, around the world, were really negatively impacted by this, and it's been a tough slog for most people. So I'm very much empathetic towards the difficulty, and I'm sure you guys felt it. I mean, I've got most of my followers on social media are based in the fitness industry, so they're gym owners, they're gym operators, they're personal trainers, and bar none, everybody was affected by this. And people lost their gyms, people lost their jobs.
Yeah,
it's been devastating.
It's been rough for a lot of people, man.
It has been a tough time, and I agree 100%. And it's as much as it is sad, at the same time, so one thing I've come to realize too, it really it tests your character, and it really shows you as well, like, are you going to let a moment like this as well knock you down and keep you down? Or are you going to figure out creative ways, and even at your lowest, are you going to figure out ways to be able to get out of this or start climbing out, or, be able to just survive through these moments? And what are you going to do? So, I think it really can test somebody's character as well, very, very much.
Absolutely. And we all know it's something you hate to admit, but if you think back to any time in your life where you actually grew or developed or evolved, not just business-wise, but as a human being, as a person, as a character, it's been through adversity. Mm-hmm. And who's the Navy SEAL Jocko? You ever hear this guy?
Yeah, he's the best.
He's amazing, and he's a very inspirational guy. But he talks about that when he was a squadron leader, and they'd foresee problems, and his team would come up to him. One of the tenders is down. What are we going to do? We've got to deploy. And he's like, good, this is a chance to grow, to develop, to evolve, and to figure out how to solve problems in the clutch situation. And that's a really tough attitude to adopt, but man, is it just like the weight is off your back when you look at things, adverse times, as how do I evolve and develop on all my fronts and as a human being, and especially my thought process, just calming things down. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely, a great opportunity to be able to work on stress management techniques. We're probably one of the most stressful times that any of us have been in our lifetimes. And even, you brought up the whole personal development side. It's like, it's a great opportunity for that. We talk about it all the time. We talked about it before we even started the podcast, when we were even, in the conception stage. And we said, listen, man, like, it's either now or never, right? You're either gonna have that victim mentality where, oh, all these bad things are happening to me, or you're gonna attack on the areas that you can double down on, the things that are your strengths, as well as, like you were talking about, filling the cracks of your weaknesses and trying to, share everything up so that when we do have our full lives back, whenever that may be, we can hit the ground running.
Absolutely. And what's the famous quote? It goes something like, the cave we fear to enter usually holds the treasure that we seek. Mm-hmm. And I call these God's like imperatives from God. I mean, it's paradoxical situations that we have here on earth. It's always like yin yang, right? Yeah. We've got a bad situation. How do you make the best out of it? You've got a good situation. Prepare yourself, because guess what? That pendulum's going to swing. And, right. I deal with gazillionaires up here, and it doesn't matter how much money you have. At some point, you have an issue with your health. At some point, you have an issue with your interpersonal relationships with your family or friends. At some point, I'm training right now a gentleman who owns Bowtie Cinemas. Bowtie Cinemas, it's like Regal. There's AMC. The Bowtie is one of the cinemas, and he's been in business for years. He's financially so secure. I'm not worried about that. But the issue is that he's never seen a time like this. It's unprecedented, where all his movie theaters are just forced to close down for months. Imagine the summer. All your summer blockbusters are supposed to come out, and the revenue's supposed to spike. He's got none of that. So it's game on. How can you be nimble and agile in adverse times, and see how we evolve out of it? It's kind of a beautiful thing if you've got the right mindset.
That's definitely right, man. And I think one of the things you were talking about with that analogy, and it's entering the unknown, and right now there's a time where we're entering an unknown for sure time of what is going to come out of this. And I think it's also important of self-awareness during these times of understanding too, that, you can wait during these moments of unknown and uncertainty, or you can take advantage of them and actually come out on the other end successful in something new, whatever your goal was. And, me and Josh talking about all the time, I'm a huge believer where it's like, like we were saying, these are moments that really test you and can really bring out things you didn't even know you had in your life, or things that you didn't even know you can do. And it gives you the opportunity to create and work on other avenues and areas of your weaknesses, like you had said, and filling those cracks in. And then on top of that, it goes to show, your limits, how far you can be pushed, how far you can be tested. And it really opens up a true awareness of really understanding who you deeply are and who you can become. So, as sadly as all these things have happened, I think it's, obviously we all know it's terrible. I think we can also look at some of the learning lessons and bring in some of the goodness in ourselves that we can take out of this, and be able to start applying this for when things do start settling down, and say, you know what, well, I learned this, I became this is what I got to continue to bring on, from this experience. So, like in anything, out of all bad, there's always some kind of good.
I love it. And keep in mind, I think a lot of your listeners, your audience, are either ex-athletes or, have competed at some point in their life. It's the same character traits that you have as an athlete. you train, you compete, you get injured, you've got adversity, you get the flu or whatever before the big game. And you figure out how to overcome this stuff and still compete at a high level and still be there for your teammates, or if it's an individual sport, for yourself and your coaches and your sponsors. So I often tell people that it's easier if you've had that athletic background, because you can tap into all that stuff. It's inside you. Don't freak out just because now it's in the business world or in interpersonal relationships. The same character traits, are paramount in any situation.
Yeah, grit. At the end of the day, if you want to be successful, especially in the United States, you need to have a ton of perseverance. You need to have a ton of grit, right? Like nothing's going to come easy to you. No matter who you know or what you know, you still have to put your nose to the ground and grind, right? I kind of want to, you mentioned it earlier, right? Product development. Anthony mentioned it as he introed you in, right? You created the TRX Rip Trainer. I love that thing, man. I think it's,
same here.
My clients always have a great time with it. What got you into product development? What was your entry into that? And then, to kind of piggyback off of that, what made you think of the Rip Trainer and start developing that? Because that's an amazing tool for us trainers to be able to use.
Yeah, and these are great business stories, because business usually evolves out of necessity, right? There's some kind of problem that you're trying to solve. In health and fitness, you see a lot of people that are out of shape and they're having congestive heart failure, and you want to get them in shape. You open up a gym, you offer your services, and you start getting people in shape. Very simple, problem solution. When I was a physical therapist working in Aspen, one of my first jobs, I was in a clinic, and I noticed that I could never find any of my tools: foam rollers, stretching mats, BOSU balls, like all that stuff. It was just strewn across the room. And so I said, shouldn't there be a rack of some sort that organizes all this stuff? And so most people don't even know. My first product was called the Functional Training Rack. I licensed it to Perform Better. This was years ago, 2008. Amazing. But it was really cool. It was like a rack that had medicine balls. So imagine a medicine ball rack. Mm-hmm. But then behind the rack, you could put tilt boards and BOSU balls. And then it had these two antennas that came out that you could hang sport cords. And it had these canisters you could put mats in and foam rollers. And it just organized all that functional gear. And so it was simply a problem that frustrated me in the industry. And I got frustrated enough where I said, you know what, I can design something that will accommodate all this gear. And that was my entryway into the product space. Now, I will tell you, I didn't go to Columbia Business School. I don't have an MBA from Stanford. I'm just a physical therapist and certified strength coach. And so I had no clue what I was doing when it came to business. And so, I launched this product. It was in the middle of a recession. It was 2008, 2009. So I don't know if you guys are young pups.
Yeah, I think we were both in high school.
We were in high school.
You have no clue what was going on. But trust me, there was a bad economic recession, and real estate dropped and steel prices went up. A lot of people don't remember China was building out for the Beijing Olympics, and they were buying all the steel from all over the world, and plus oil and gas prices went up. So all of a sudden, my production costs to manufacture my functional training rack literally rose 50%. And I was like, wow. Wait a minute, there goes my margin,
Yeah.
So I ended up kind of giving it to Perform Better, but I learned a valuable lesson, and that dovetailed into my next product, which was the TRX Rip Trainer. And that was really simple. I was training a guy by the name of Mike Schultz. He's an X Games athlete, snowcross athlete. And actually, a year after I started training him, he lost his leg in a terrible snowmobile accident.
Wow.
But then went on to be like a 10-time gold medalist, X Games Paralympic athlete. He represented the U.S. on the Paralympic team and won a gold medal in snowboarding. He's just the most amazing guy. But he was training for snowmobiling, and he said, I've got low back pain, and I feel like I need more core strength. And I thought, man, if I could simulate something that would represent the torque loads and the inertial loads going into a bank turn on a snowmobile, keep in mind the sleds are like 300 pounds and you're.
Yeah, I don't think Mendes, have you ever been on a snowmobile before? I'm from upstate New York, so I grew up on snowmobile.
Have you been on a wave runner?
Yes, I've been on one, not on a snowmobile, but a wave runner, yes.
Yeah, but like a big industrial wave runner that really flies around. If you're I mean, if you're in the wrong position on that,
you'll get fucked up. Yeah, you'll get fucked up.
Whoa. So but the same concept. You're up on your feet. You got to have tremendous core strength, and there's this kind of push-pull control of the handlebars. And I literally was laying in my bed one day, looked up at the closet rod, and I said, "That's kind of looks like a snowmobile handle." And I ripped all my clothes off of there, went down to the garage, screwed in an eye bolt into the end, and took an old resistance cord and attached it to this eye bolt. Attached the resistance cord to a ski rack in my garage, and started just playing around, experimenting. Like, what would happen if I pushed on this and pulled on it? And then because I was on the U.S. National Taekwondo team, so my background's really into martial arts. And so I started striking, like I was punching with the thing. And I mean, 5 minutes goes by, I'm sweating, I'm breathing, I'm panting. And I said, this is cool, And that was the first kind of foray into the Ripcore FX, which turned into the TRX Rip Trainer. And of course, the story is a long story because launching a business, especially in the product space, is extremely challenging and difficult. But that was the first step is, hey, my snowmobile athlete has a problem. His back hurts and he feels needs improved core strength. The solution was this bar with a resistance cord that simulated snowmobiling.
That's amazing. So I first have to ask you, did you keep the original one that you created?
I've got it right now. I'm not kidding.
Ooh,
yeah.
Oh, I gotta see that, man.
Well, it's you'll laugh at it because it's literally a wooden dowel and an old, janky sport cord. And it was funny when I was trying to get investment capital from some really prominent people in Aspen. There was one guy, I presented it to him and he's like, this is interesting. I want to see a profit and loss statement. So I gave him that and he said, yeah, it's interesting. Why don't you expand this to 3 years for profit and loss? By the way, if you've never done a P&L on a business that you haven't started, it's a nightmare. I mean, it takes you 10 to 20 hours,
Yeah.
So I tweaked it for 3 years. And then he said, I thought about this a lot and I just can't see why I would ever invest in a stick and a cord. That's what he told me. And this guy was a prominent, he was one of the founding guys of Twitter as far as financial, VC. And so I was just devastated. I went out of that meeting and I was so broken and disheartened. And then I went out and I got my tool and I started using it again. I said, you know what? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I love this thing. It works. He doesn't understand my industry. And it's more than a stick and a cord. It's much more. And so I started building education around it and started getting some people on board that really believed in me and some investment capital. Next thing you know, I mean, the TRX Rip Trainer, it's on all 7 continents. We've done probably $25 million worth of product sales on a stick and a cord. So take that.
And you know what? He's probably using one now.
Yeah.
Oh, he actually is? So there you go.
That's great. That's hilarious. Yeah, so for our listeners out there who might be, thinking about getting into product development, I'm sure there are some people out there. They're going to go through some of the same pushback that you had from people, right? Not being able to necessarily see the vision that you see or buy into, the actual benefits of the product you're creating. So what can you say to those people who might face some of those barriers as they go through the same process you went through?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's not dissimilar to a trial attorney preparing for a case, right? When you go to argue your case in front of a jury, you have to have all your ducks in a row, and you have to have evidence that supports your findings or your case. It's real similar to launching a business. The more prepared you are, the more documents, if you have some kind of patent pending, if you've got some intellectual property protection on the product, if you've done all your market research and you have some kind of deck or executive summary that shows that you've done the competitive market analysis, if you've looked into product liability insurance and you kind of put numbers and figures to all this stuff, and if you experimented, you have to build something. I mean, even if you want to open up a gym, for instance, you don't just say, I want to open up a gym. It's going to be awesome. Trust me, I'm a great guy. I'm a great trainer. I need money. you have to build a model. You say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. This is what our vision is and our mission statement. And this is the color scheme. And this is our brand. And this is what we stand for. And here's my executive management team or my advisory board. And here's some of my top trainers that are going to come with me. And they're already reputable in the area. You build your case. And it's not dissimilar to launching a product. So there's a lot of steps between getting the vision. I mean, to be honest with you, people come up and tell me all the time, I've got this great idea, Pete. And they tell me, and I'm like, maybe, maybe not. Now build it out. By the way, when I was trying to seek venture capital for the what was called the Ripcore, it was actually called the Core 10 trainer. Then it became the Ripcore FX when I kind of branded it. And then TRX acquired us and it became the TRX Rip Trainer. But before it was the Ripcore FX, I had no money. I needed to get investment capital, and I was building my case. I literally got a Canon camera, like a pretty decent camera. I spent maybe $1,000 on that, and I got an iMac computer. And back then in 2009, video stuff it wasn't like now. You can film high-level production on your iPhone.
Those were your first social media videos.
Yeah, back then, like exactly right. Back then, it was. You had to have some gear. And I thought, if I'm going to bring this vision to life, I need to capture it. And so I started becoming like a novice videographer, and I learned about camera angles. And I would Google every day, how do you cut scenes, and how do you frame the subject, and how do you make it look more epic? And I'm telling you, there was a video I produced that I showed at the TRX acquisition meeting when they were kind of vetting us to say, hey, do we want to get involved with these guys? And I showed him this video. It was a movie I made on my iMac. And I mean, it was about 90 seconds long. And I could see Randy Hetrick's eyes just open up. He's the founder of TRX. And I could see their CEO kind of go, whoa, that's pretty cool. Because with my minimal skills, I was able to bring to life what I wanted them to see. And so you got to bring your vision to life and get buy-in. And it's not easy to do, but it can be done. I'm proof positive.
You know what? One of the things that stuck out to me the most was the fact that you brought up how you had to invest in a camera yourself, learn how to edit these things, learn the angles, Google everything yourself. Because I think many times people sometimes forget that when you go into doing something that you're passionate about and wanting to do, there's going to be a lot of little things that you got to do that you might not be completely familiarized with or might not know how to do, but you have to do them now because you don't have enough funds to pay somebody to do it because you're just starting off. And I think there's a lot to say with that, with your success, because, you know, when people can do that and take on those little tasks that, you know, even though that's not what you're meant to do, it just shows a lot in how passionate one is behind what they're really trying to push. So the fact that you brought that up, I think a lot of listeners are going to be able to take that with them, because with somebody's, you know, with your success and being a product that everybody knows, you know, it's going to make them think, well, you know, if he did it, that means that I have to do it and even more.
Absolutely. And the best example of that is I just finished a book called Excellence Wins. And if you're in management, or if you own a business, or you lead people, you need to read this book. It's Horst Schultz. He's the CEO, the ex-CEO of the Ritz-Carlton. And in Excellence Wins, it's an amazing example of how difficult it is to be successful, but the painstaking detail of a true competitor in the business world and somebody that's a success is unbelievable. And it's, you know, if you watched Michael Jordan's Last Dance, one of the greatest documentaries I've seen. Now, I kind of grew up with Michael Jordan, and he was a hero to me. But it shows you how he left no stone unturned in his development and evolution as a basketball player. And in business, it's the same way. And Ritz-Carlton, if you understand anything about that model, you don't become an executive manager. They don't hire out. You have to be a housekeeping manager. You have to be in the restaurant and food service delivery department. You have to be in the bell service, the valets. You have to understand every task and everything that goes into running a Ritz-Carlton. And not until then are you considered as a potential for executive management. Wow. It's a beautiful model, because once you get there, you know everything about the hotel and the hotel industry, and you can speak with confidence. about what, even if you're onboarding new valet bellhops, you can hey, I was here 6 years ago. I did what you're doing. Don't, give me any lip. I know what's going on. So, that's the biggest advice I have on that is, cash is king when you're starting out. You can't say, oh, I'm going to hire a videographer for, $5,000 a month. It doesn't work like that. You don't have $5,000 a month to hire a videographer. And I'm sure you guys have experienced some of this starting a podcast. From what I understand, a podcast is not easy to start and operate. And there's a lot of back end, front end stuff that is really challenging. And so you guys, kudos to you as well for
appreciate
doing
it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate that. It means a lot. Definitely, we have our moments. We definitely we go through our days where we're like, fuck, we got a lot to do. But it always blew my mind. When I first got into fitness, I would spend like a little bit of time with some of my clients in their office, just hanging out, getting to know them as, I wanted to develop that relationship with them. And when their employees would come in, it was just amazing to me, no matter the question that their employee had for them, they had an answer. It always blew my mind. Like, how do you know so much about all these little nuanced things that you haven't taken care of in maybe 10 years? And then now being on the other side of it and being a business owner and having to have my hand in all these little different aspects of the business that I wouldn't have necessarily been into, I'm like, I get it now. I get it. Between Mendez and me, at least with the podcast, like he deals with a lot of the front end stuff. I deal with the back end stuff, but it's a lot more than you expect. Like you were saying, it's like emails and, calendar links and, oh, we have to share this, or we have to send this to this person or this sponsor, or we got this going on. We have to try to network with this person. Oh, we have to go to this convention, or, we're trying to set up a meeting with this. It's like, all right, I can understand why these people honestly know so much about their industry.
Yep. And then operate the rest of your life as well. All the other things that are going on in your life.
Yeah.
Other your job, your family, your all that stuff.
Yeah, I feel blessed to probably be the only single person with no kids here. Yeah.
Well, your partner makes up for it because he's got like 3 or 4 kids, right?
Oh man, yeah, a couple.
I got my little one, and then I got my stepdaughter. So.
Oh, you do okay too.
I'm just outnumbered by women. That's the problem.
You know what? I grew up with women too. A family full of women. It could be worse.
I think that might be why I'm still single. I grew up with a house full of women.
Oh no, this is. I'm telling you, it's all these things that we're sharing on here. I think it's just super important for, especially young coaches and future thinkers who are thinking about moving forward and doing things in business or inventing, and it's just these lessons, these learning lessons, especially during times like this in COVID, where you have so much more time to think, to grow, to put yourself, in a position to have an advantage where you can come out on top because you've been able to dim down, learn new resources, work on these other little things and stuff like that. So with that being said, I have to ask you, during this time, are there new inventions, new ideas that you've thought of? Are there new projects that you're working on? If you can disclose, not too sure, but I would love to hear.
Yeah, in fact, I mentioned early on that this COVID break in March gave me a huge time to work on a project that it's been in the works for, to be honest, over a year. But, you get busy, you got family, I've got my one-on-one clients, holiday stuff comes up, and it's challenging to find the time to hunker down and get it done. I also launched a book this year called Cruise, not to plug the book, but it was that I had a lot of stuff.
Congrats.
Please plug the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a cool book. It's called Cruise, CRUZ, and it's on Amazon. It's just about mentorship and leadership and
awesome. We'll check that out for sure.
Yeah. We'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
We'll definitely look at that.
Cool. I'll send you guys a copy. You got to just send me your address.
Yeah, we will for sure. Thank you. That'd be awesome.
I appreciate that. But so March came along and I was like, what am I going to do? And then I forgot I'm working on this massive project that I'm very excited about. And man, I just hunkered down and got going and got after it. And it's a product, I can't tell you too much, but it's for glute development. I don't know if you guys knew, I also created something called the Nautilus Glute Drive, the Glute Drive. And it's basically a plate-loaded hip thrust machine. So if you've ever done, glute exercises where you're in a bridge position and you lift your hips up off the deck, and then, kind of Brett Contreras back in the mid-2000s really popularized this. He would put his back up elevated on a back pad and then add a barbell across his waist and do weighted hip thrusts. And so I thought, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a machine that you can, instead of setting up all the, barbells and, you got to have a pad on the barbell and then you got to grab a bench. I said, there should just be a machine that does glute hip thrusts, plate-loaded hip thrusts. And so I created
the one with the seat belt across?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Nautilus glute drive.
Yeah, they have one at Anatomy, I'm pretty sure. Down here.
Mark Magna, yeah.
Yeah, I've used that thing at the one in Midtown. It's great. Yeah. No shit.
So it's really cool. So I kind of met Mark through that, and he bought one.
He was just on the podcast.
Yeah, we just had him on.
Yeah, he was just on the podcast.
On Tuesday, we just had Mark on.
Yeah, so I used to teach group fitness for Mark at Anatomy, the one on South Beach.
That's so cool. That's great because I saw him at Anatomy. I was like, wait, what is this place? Because I wasn't real familiar with it. And then I started looking into Mark's story, and he's just an amazing individual and businessman and leader and athlete. And he owns one of my products. So,
Yeah. No, I've used that at Midtown a ton. That gets a lot of use down here in Miami for sure. People love that machine.
Yeah. So here's the point, is not to plug my Nautilus glute drive, but it's to talk about hip development and glute. Your glutes are the powerhouse of your core. So
Absolutely.
Whether you're an athlete, competing at the highest level, you got to have strong glute and hip stability. Yeah. But then also the zeitgeist, which is kind of like the spirit of the times, has changed for aesthetics. It used to be like washboard stomachs, but now it's kind of like curvaceous backside,
especially here in Miami.
And we know it. And listen, fantastic. I'm an advocate, but the functional aspect of that is you got to have strong, powerful glutes to kind of stabilize your spine and pelvis. The aesthetic aspect is that, it's kind of a healthier model, in my opinion. Instead of like a stick thin runway model, you actually have women that are interested in kind of having some curves and having some strength and not, starving themselves to death. Yeah. Which I think is generally a healthy thing for society.
Now I know why you invented that product.
Yeah.
To get curvier women out in the world.
God bless you. God bless you.
Yeah. But so my next product kind of dovetails on this, and it's not a hip thrust, but it's a consumer product. And there'll be a commercial one as well that has to do with glute development. So to strengthen the glute medius, which is kind of your high glute, your lateral glute, your hip abductor, and the glute max, which is your, the low glute, the glute extensor. And these are so stay tuned. I mean, I'm driving down to Denver this weekend to get my second prototype. I always build one prototype just to see if it works, if I like the feeling, and if I can get my head around it. And then usually, the last couple of prototypes I built, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is going to be good. And so I kind of had that same feeling. And so now I spent a little bit more money to build this second prototype. And then guess what? I got to build my story. I got to create a vision with a powerful deck and video and still shots and a profit and loss statement. And I'm going to start going out and getting some venture capital. So it's a pretty exciting time. And this could be the one, guys, that takes me to the moon,
Well, anything
we can't wait.
Yeah, anything we can do to help you out with the launch of that and pushing it out, please let us know. We'll be
fantastic.
We'll be more, not only just for the benefits it's going to bring us all down here in Miami, but because we obviously believe in everything that you're doing. So
I've got one with your name on it.
I appreciate that.
Perfect. I probably need a little bit more work than Mendez, but
it's the Cuban side of me.
Yeah.
I get the.
I've seen your workouts, Mendez. You're nuts, man.
Oh, he's a savage. He's a savage.
Appreciate it. So are you still shooting your own videos or what?
It's funny. Yes and no. I mean, if it's something that's a little more professional, I need a little bit spice on it. I'm not at the point where I want to buy a $20,000 camera. It's not worth it to me. I'd rather pay somebody a few $100 and get an hour at a time. I will tell you though, I direct all my scripts. I write out all the dialogue. If there's talking points,
Awesome.
I come up with all the camera angles, because traditionally videographers, you get some good ones now that are younger that really understand extreme sports and how to get camera angles. A lot of times you got to almost tell them what vision they see. And then hopefully if they're creative, they'll come up with something special, like, oh, let's add a drone, or, let's try this shot from a really low angle. And so I'm still very involved in the video stuff. But certainly most of the stuff on my social media, I just shoot. I don't have time to coordinate people, and I don't mind paying the extra costs. It's one of those things where if you're trying to create an image and be a brand, I mean, most of us in the fitness industry are our own brand. It's like a rock star or something. You are your own brand. You've got to have your own label. And so all this stuff, and I see, Mendez, your video production value has gone from pretty darn good to start to really high level stuff. Doesn't mean you have to always have that. Sometimes the candid stuff in your garage and your boxing or whatever.
Yeah, it's authentic
that way. But sometimes you do have to show people that, hey, I'm serious. I'm taking this to the next level, and you've got some really high level stuff. So it's kind of a mix, but I do a little bit of shooting myself and hire out some of my stuff.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, right, it's about telling that story, right? Like, what kind of story do you want to tell for yourself, for your philosophy, for your brand, right? If you're always shooting off a flip phone, you're never going to be able to tell that type of quality story that's going to be able to draw people in and get them to believe in you and be able to trust you as an authority in whatever field you work in, right? Like, the amount of effort or the amount of respect that you're going to gain is only paramount based off of what your effort is and the amount of time and energy and resources that you're putting into it, right? You can't expect people to want to buy your rip trainer if you kept it at that prototype, right? You had to continually get better and better and better and make advancements in what you believed in order for people to then believe in you and believe in what you created.
Absolutely. And to some extent, there is some smoke and mirrors to it. I mean, if you got to start somewhere. So you're creating an illusion. We all like to have somebody, like professional athletes, if they have video production stuff coming, we all like to start at that level where LeBron's doing a 90-second trailer but we're not there. So you have to create an illusion that you're bigger than you are. And this is what, everybody in business and advertising does. I mean, sometimes, you go by the nightclub, right? And they got the velvet ropes and they're lining everybody up outside.
It's
and you get in the club,
Yep. Been there 1,000 times.
You're trying to create an illusion. And if you get good at that, you can create an illusion that people buy into. And then before you know it, that illusion becomes reality. There's a famous psychologist, her name's Amy Cuddy, and works out of Harvard. And she says, don't fake it till you make it, fake it till you become it. So in other words, you're not trying to be a snake oil salesman. You're just trying to believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing, so much so that you become what you believe in. And that's powerful stuff. That's the power of intention. Wayne Dyer and these famous, truth sayers talk about this all the time, man. You surround yourself with the people that are moving in your direction. On your fridge, you put pictures of, here, this is the house that I always want to get. It might be 10 years down the road, but man, I'm setting that intention. And if you're trying to lose weight and get back in shape after having a child or whatever it is, you put those images up of you in high school when you're on the cheerleading team or you're on the track team or whatever. And you're like forcing yourself to believe and to become what your vision is. And
100.
It works, man.
Yeah.
100, man. I couldn't agree anymore. I'm a huge believer and a practitioner of that all the time because, it's all law of attraction. And if you really believe and you start putting forward these things that you want for yourself down the road in life and you really harness them in, these pieces are what are going to get you to have that one day, and it's like you said, it's not fake it till you're mega, it's fake it till you become it. And at the end of the day, it's not really the term fake it, but it's not really faking it because if you believe it, you're not faking it, because you're going to have that, you already have that, so in your head, that vision, that picture is what really is the truth. And that's what you need to hold by, and not care what people tell you, the distraction, the bullshit, the this and that. It's about, what do you believe that you know is real in your head, that's going to drive you every single day. So that way you really have it in your hands in existence, you know, that you can hold, feel, and touch. And, you know, the fact that you brought that up, I think is amazing, because I know there's a lot of people out there, especially during times like this, where they're hesitant, they're scared. They're not in a position where they feel that they can go and accomplish these things, or invest in themselves, or invest in these things. And, you know, and I'm a huge believer. It's like, I don't care, you know, I said it earlier, you know, I don't care if, you know, whoever it is says I can't do something. I don't care if, you know, they're going to shut down everything. I don't care if they're going to tell you, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know what? I'm going to still do what I can and what I'm in control of. And like I told Josh, you know, don't control the uncontrollable, but control what you can, and that's yourself. You know, and if you can control those visions and those dreams every single day, then you're going to be extremely successful.
The mind is so powerful, isn't it, guys? I mean,
it's beautiful.
Think about it is. It's beautiful, and it's so powerful. And I think sometimes we walk around in our bodies, and we're kind of present and we're kind of not. And we have all this chatter going on in our heads. And a lot of the chatter is your failings and fear from the past. And it culminates into this, gosh, I mean, I go through this, you know, I was a U.S. national Taekwondo champion. I was a team captain for the national team. But you think before the fight, I didn't have fears and a voice in my head that said, dude, this guy looks gnarly. Are you know, this guy, his records, he's undefeated, you know? And no, you have that stuff, and you go, yeah, but man, I've been training hard for this. I'm ready. This is my time. I own this moment. I control my destiny. I control my future. You got to have that powerful internal dialogue. And, you know, I still get it to this day. I'm not competing, but I'll go speak. I speak a lot and present in the fitness industry. And trust me, when there's 200 people sitting, waiting to hear what you have to say, there's a little bit of nerves, you know. I'm sure Tony Robbins, that does this every single day, he probably, you know, at some point you habituate to it, and it's just like another day at the job, you know. But for me, you know, once a quarter when I speak and there's 100 people, 200 people, or to be honest, even 10, I'm like, man, they showed up to hear me, what I have to say. I got to bring it. I'm bringing my A game. And you have to kind of, you're in the back room. It's like Eminem in 8 Mile, you know, you're kind of like, in the back room, like, oh, and then you get it out and you're like, okay, let's go. And you go out there and crush it. So I'm telling your audience, I'm telling myself, I'm telling you guys, you got to believe in yourself and the power of setting your intention and following through. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you can do essentially whatever you put your mind to that's within reason. I'm old now. I'm not going to compete in Taekwondo anymore. I can't do certain things. But as far as just because I'm not a Stanford MBA or a Columbia business grad doesn't mean I can't have a successful business. Doesn't mean I can't create and expand. Doesn't mean I can't write a book. You know, who knows what doesn't mean I can't play guitar. Maybe one day on stage. Like, why not?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. I mean, you know, we have extremely different paths to how we got to where we are today. You know, Mendez took a much more unconventional route of, you know, gaining steam through the fitness industry. I went the more traditional route like you, right? I have my master's in exercise science and health promotion as well. I was a collegiate strength and conditioning coach for a little while, working with athletes at Syracuse and FAU. And, you know, we met, like, it doesn't really matter the road you take because we're both sitting in these chairs talking to you today, right? And I think that's so important for people to understand, is that you can't mirror your path to someone else's, even though you may want to get to the end result that they want to get to, because eventually, even if you start heading down the same path, it's going to divert. It's going to divert, and you're going to have to figure out your own way.
So, Pete,
back to our earlier conversation.
I'm sorry for cutting off. Just something, you know, tying in with all of this that we're talking about. And it's just something I really wanted to ask to see, you know, what your opinion or more about how you go about it. But I would love it if you can explain, you know, how is it that you can use, or how is it that you bring out some level of ego where it helps you to overcome these things and build that confidence? Because I think a lot of times people hear the word ego and they'll automatically think, oh, he's an asshole, he's this, or he's full of himself.
Only when they're talking about me.
But I would love it for you to share with us, like, how is it that you use that good level of ego, and how do you go about it? And then when do you know when it shouldn't be used?
So I'll never forget, I was teaching the first master instructor course at the TRX headquarters to RIP trainer instructors. So these were all the A-list. There was about 20 US instructors from around the country that were teaching suspension training at the highest level. And these were not, you know, your average, hey, my first year at Equinox. These were like master trainers that all had their own gyms, that had their own, workouts that were sponsored by Under Armour. I mean, it was, professional athletes, Olympic athletes, and they came in. I was teaching them this RIP trainer course. And part of the course is when you start the course, you tell people who you are and what you're about. And so after about 2 or 3 introductions, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then somebody whispered to me, oh, this dude, he played professional baseball. He didn't mention that in his intro. And I said, oh, time out, bro. Back up to your athletic activities, because he said, yeah, well, I used to be kind of athletic. I was pretty competitive, and then he just glossed over it. And he said, my man here just told me you're a professional baseball player. How come you didn't mention that? And he's like, well, I didn't want to be braggadocious. I said, dude, you experienced playing baseball at the highest level. Now, if you've never tried to hit a 92-mile-an-hour fastball,
it's
you
impossible.
have no clue what I'm talking about. But trust me, if you've sat in the box and stared down, and I've never hit a 92, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But
I've tipped one off before, but that's that's about it.
Trust me, I got hit by a dude in high school that was throwing like 85, 86 in the thigh. And the guy said, take your base. And I'm like, give me a second. Okay, I got to move right now. But I said, man, you gotta double down on that stuff. You don't have to be egocentric and braggadocious, but you have to say, listen, one of the things that brought me to this place is that my experience is training to play professional baseball. I learned this, I learned that. I learned about discipline and work ethic, and I learned about injury recovery and rehabilitative medicine. Use it as a pillar to bolster your character and the position you're about to try to assume as a leader, a thought leader in the industry. So that's the way you should use it. The way you don't use it is like a lot of folks that turn us off immediately when we start talking to them. And before you know it, they tell you what kind of car they're driving, where they're living, and how much money they're making each quarter. And it's just kind of a turnoff. But if you talk to somebody that has a well-established sense of self and ego, they will tell you who they are without bragging about it. But absolutely. And to be honest, I did the same thing at the start of introducing myself. And then I realized, listen, Taekwondo and being a physical therapist and being a certified strength and conditioning specialist, that's who I am. That's why I'm here talking to you.
Yep.
And that gives me credibility without having to brag about it. These are my experiences. So great question, but man, it's no time to be humble when you're trying to promote yourself and who you are. The best thing is, and Josh, you talked about this, you have to have a story behind it. Taekwondo for me is why I got into strength and conditioning, because I wanted to learn how to be the biggest, fastest, strongest athlete, most explosive, most accurate athlete I could be. And then when I competed and when I trained at that level, I was constantly injured. And that's what got me into physical therapy. I wanted to know, how do I rehab my body? Because my shoulders, I dislocated my shoulder and I twisted my knee. And that got me into physical therapy. So it's this building the story. Now it starts to make sense. Oh, Pete's a Taekwondo guy, but it got him into strength and conditioning, got him into physical therapy. And then he got frustrated with that stuff and some of the things in the industry. He started creating products and inventing new modalities to help out other professionals be more efficient and effective at what they're doing. And now you've got a story of like, hey, the guy's not just bragging about, his accomplishments. He is that guy or that gal.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain way that you can leverage it positively without, sounding like an asshole, like we've all been mentioning, but it's interesting how you kind of just took us through your whole progression, right? Throughout the like little different avenues of your career. And we talk about it all the time. Like when I left grad school, when I started at Equinox, if you would have told me 7 years later that I was going to be, you know, talking to you over a mic on a podcast that I read, I would have told you you were insane.
That same here.
Insane, right? So I think there's something to say about, you know, not fixating or not making yourself stuck into one modality of making money or even like being happy, right? Like find different things, different avenues that you enjoy doing. And if you enjoy doing them a lot and they provide a lot of value for people, then you can profit off of that.
Absolutely. And if you think about, you know, so Josh, you're single. So you go out and you're talking to a gal at the coffee shop or wherever. And what interests you about her? Is it she's pretty? That's great.
She hammered that Nautilus glute machine.
Woo! Yeah, Woo! No, but I mean, seriously. So she's pretty. That's why you're talking to her, because you're attracted to her. But like, what else you got? You know, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What excites you? What are you passionate about? That's what makes us interesting human beings. And one of my favorite guys of all time is Leonardo da Vinci. And if you've ever looked at his stuff or researched who he is and what he's done, he's the most impressive guy you ever see. I mean, he's an anatomist, a doctor, he's an artist, he's an architect, he's a mechanical engineer, he's a civil engineer, he's a mathematician. I mean, he just has this scope of talent that, to me, makes him very interesting and intriguing, because he's interested in the world. He's interested in learning about things and being well-versed. And it doesn't mean you have to go play the piano and you have to, you know, be a butterfly collector or whatever, but you got to find some things that you're passionate about other than just your 9 to 5 and expand who you are as a human being. I think that's what makes us amazing, you know, and interesting individuals. And I think it will help your growth and evolution and development over the years if you have some diverse interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Absolutely. I know we're almost at an hour here, and Mendes has a couple questions he wants to ask you that he asks all of our guests at the end. But before we do that, I want to give you an opportunity to be able to let our listeners know where they can find you. If you have a website or your Instagram, whatever that you use the most, so that people can reach out to you and ask you questions or learn more about the new product that you're coming out with when you're ready to launch it.
Absolutely. So that was another thing I did this year was I launched a website. You'd think it would, after 50 years, I would have a website, but I did not. So it's, guys, this is a progression. You got to do what you can when you can do it. The website is ph1performance.com. So P as in Pete, H as in Holman, the number 1, ph1performance.com. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram at Pete Holman 1 and Twitter, Pete Holman 1. And I'm on Facebook, a couple different places. But that website, ph1performance.com, has kind of all my contact stuff in there, and you can learn a little bit more about me.
Awesome.
Amazing. So, Pete, I'm going to ask you some quick questions here. So, number 1, what was the most...
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. The GOAT. There we go. That's it. That's right. The GOAT. So what was the wildest experience you've ever experienced doing what you do in your career?
I'd probably say presenting to 200 people that spoke only Portuguese in Brazil, doing a TRX rip trainer course to 200 people, which, by the way, we were supposed to have group training stations, and none of those showed up, so we had to use sandbags to anchor the rip cords.
What?
And then I'm presenting, and in real time, there's this guy named Eugenio and another woman named Susanna that were interpreting for me. And it was bizarre. I mean, but super fun.
That's awesome. All right, number 2. If there's only one tool that you can have with you, what would it be?
You know, as much as I love my rip trainer, that's suspension trainer. If you have a place to anchor it, is just it's money. I mean, for mobility, for core strength, for pulling stuff, pushing. And you can even do some rotation stuff in there. It's just a really unique piece of tool. I think it's brilliant. And that's one I have in my gear bag. I do a lot of in-home sessions. I bring that with me everywhere I go.
Love it. Last but not least, in one sentence, what's the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners today?
Can I give you a quote?
Of course.
Definitely.
So Bruce Lee once said, in every passionate pursuit, the pursuit counts more than the object being pursued. So, I know there's a goal. I want to make money. I want to have a hot wife. I want to drive a fancy car, whatever it is. But it's the pursuit. We talked about this earlier. It's the grit. It's the grind. It's that daily work ethic that makes you evolve into a really unique human being. So, enjoy the journey. Try to smile and laugh a little bit along the way. But it's all about the pursuit.
Love it. And then fake it to become it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm stealing that one for sure. Want to say thank you one more time, Pete. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you for all that you've done for the industry, all the amazing tools that you've created. I know we really have benefited down here in South Florida from the RIP trainer, from
big time.
Now that I know that you created the Nautilus glute trainer, that's an awesome piece of equipment. Pete Holman, everyone. Thank you so much.
Can't wait to get my hands on your book.